Wow, so we have made it 47 sketches so far. I gotta say, I didn't think that was going to be possible. I figured I would just burn out or, get bored. Honestly, doing the same thing over and over again sometimes is a lot, it's easier said than done for sure. So I have pulled in a sketch from a long time ago, from back in the generative class days. And this is another feedback loop ditty, and I did some tests before this just to double check and make sure it wasn't going to freak out like the last one, which I think may have been a preliminary sketch with some bug in the line there. And I've got all these notes in here. So when I did the generative class, I had maybe 8 or 9 Ableton projects, and they had notes in them so that whoever from the class could open it up and sort of read about what is happening inside of the project, inside of each of the tracks. So sometimes, you can write really long notes or split these long thoughts out into multiple dummy clips. As you can see, some of the words have been cut off. They changed the font in Ableton 10, so unfortunately, we can't read everything. So you have to rename them. But this wasn't the case in Ableton 9 when I first created this sketch. So yeah, and sometimes when I've done collaborations, I will leave long notes, here. You can also, of course, in Ableton, there's the option of, let me see if I can find it here, the info section. And I believe it's, edit info text. Yeah. And you can type in whatever. But the thing I really hate about Ableton is that there's no indication that a note was left somewhere. Leaving one on the master is obviously, probably like a good practice if you're going to use it, just so that, that's obvious. But they could have just put a little UI indicator letting people know. Would have been super awesome. So anyway, enough ranting about, all the ways to improve Ableton. There are some Max for Live patches that are notepads that also work really well. Anyway, let's go ahead and place some notes into this and do what the note says here. Press some computer keys. I'm just kind of randomly hitting some of the ASDF. Cool. And as you can hear and see, we've got notes just kind of continuously happening. Back when I made all these projects, I wasn't using any Max for Live, and that was kind of the challenge, the constraint that I set on myself was just use the built-in MIDI effects. And surprisingly, you can get quite a bit of mileage, just as we've discussed before. And obviously we could use Max for Live. That's probably the easy way out, maybe the smarter way out. Work smarter, not harder. I do think there's a lot of worth in that phrase. But for the sake of trying to learn what some of these were doing, what some of the functions on these were doing, like trigger note off, trigger note on, I happened upon this ability to make feedback loops. And you can get some very, very pretty rhythms. So this project is I had set this up pretty well for the students so that they would have a fun time just opening it back up and playing around. And, who doesn't like some rhythmic melodic ambience? It's easy to make a drone, but making a nice melody is not so simple. But so I'm just like hitting A, S, D, F, G, 2 notes at a time. You can almost kind of hit whatever notes you want in here, white keys, black keys, if you stick to one of those sets, it's going to sound nice. And then you can stop the loop with hitting the stop button once. It kind of like flushes out the MIDI. So let's try some black keys here. And if you pull down your tempo, you get a nice slow rhythm there. And we could use our audio treasure Max for Live patch that I've included in the audio section, as you've seen me use before. And this is audio treasure is in and of itself a treasure because it records, I'd say, about a minute. You get sort of the tail end of it as well. So, and then you can, when you've got, you know, a section that you like, you can hit write to disk. Obviously we could hit record, you know, on one of the tracks. I think when we hit play though, of course we lose our loop. So if you have a loop that you really like and you don't want to lose it, this is a good way to go about it. Audio treasure. Yeah, definitely an amazing patch by Max for Cats, and they are just geniuses, those guys, or guy, or girl, whoever is Max for Cats. I haven't really done the research. So we have here, and all these notes explain it pretty much, what's happening. You know, you've got a note coming through here. It's feeding into the arpegg section where we have a note length with a note on, set to sync a quarter, followed by a note off, set to sync and a quarter, and, you know, just the default decay time and all that. And then a second MIDI track with virtually the same setup, note on, note off. And so this basically creates a delay, a MIDI note delay, these two together back to back, note on, note off. It's a really funny thing that these work I this way, but it makes sense, I guess, if you think about how, you know, this is triggering only when this note turns off. So unfortunately we only get a quarter note length max when we're in sync mode. So you could turn off sync mode and dial in a bunch of you know, times there. I think, you know, 60 seconds might be the max. I'm kind of like tempted to try that. Of course, I don't want to have any, you know, freakouts, of course. So let's go ahead and turn off sync, and let's just type in 5 seconds. 5 seconds. And I believe they all need to be the same. Gosh, I really wish there was a way to have MIDI notes, you know, pulled from a separate track, like an effect that would pull them from a separate track. I do know that there's a, well, there is an external effect. Let's see, external instrument, but I think this only accepts MIDI in. Real quick, I want to take a little detour and just drop this in there and see what we get. I do believe it's, wow, okay, so MIDI 2. I mean, I guess we can send MIDI from here, and this may only, just like an audio effect. Oh, I see. It's an instrument in and of itself. I see. So this is probably good for sending to, say, like Contact, where we have multiple inputs and we want to leverage all of the outputs also from Contact. Okay, so that's, I've actually used this a lot in a orchestral template where I am using Contact, and you get 16 outs from Contact, where maybe it's only like 14 or 12 or something. So anyway, okay. So we've got 5 seconds in here. 5 seconds in here. Let's give it a shot. I'm just going to play ASD. And we wait. Voila. Okay, so it sounds like five seconds, I guess. So that's cool. I mean, we could have some really slow loops here. I guess we can adjust our tempo and it isn't going to affect anything in here because these aren't set to sync mode. So let's play some other notes. Very cool. And also, I'm realizing I should probably just move some of this stuff out of the way. I've got, or just, maybe I'll shrink these for now. We don't really need to read any of that. I have actually not even read it since I made this live set back in 2016 for the class. So we have this music for carports. I guess it is kind of, it looks like it's set up slightly differently. We've got like an arpeggiator in here. We do have the note length on and off back to back, and then another note length. So, and I see this is taking notes from here. So actually, it's borrowing notes. I guess we can sort of pull notes from any track, MIDI track if we want. So the timing on this one is different because, we don't have... So that's really kind of gorgeous and an easy way to make some kind of rhythmic ambience. It's not dark enough for this, for what's going on here, obviously, but... yeah, we're done. We're pretty much done here. That's it. So this would be a really great thing to use in a live set if you wanted to. So I'm finding that I don't really have to play but just a couple of notes at once, and the rhythm patterns that it makes from the feedback loop are just, kind of nice in and of themselves. They really sound great. And one thing I'm finding out is that this note length MIDI effect only allows one instance of a note at one time. So you can't have like stacking, like C3 can't stack a whole bunch of times as far as I can tell. It essentially replaces the notes that you play. So if I play ASD on the keyboard as I'm doing right now, we get a pattern with ASD, but then if I play ADS, it sort of replaces it with that pattern instead, which is kind of convenient. So you don't get like an overload, and it's always like updating itself. So as long as you can just remember, what keys to play. Now, if you want to switch like actual like key, like you want to transpose something, you would have to. I think you could just shut this track off. Yeah, and since that's muted. Yeah, so these basically these FBK feedback tracks they have a loop going on. As we can see here, we have the out for this one going to here, and then we have MIDI coming from here. So it's like, which is why this instrument is just continuing to play. So if I shut this speaker off, essentially we should see these notes end. Or not. I guess maybe they're just... Oh, I see. We have this arpeggiator, and that was kind of causing it to continue to play. So some things to think about, and you can adjust the timing. I mean, we could, you could have one MIDI knob controlling the length. I'm not really sure what would happen if we adjusted the lengths all at the same time, but... So here is without the feedback looping on. I guess we're going to get the delay because essentially a note length that has a trigger of note on followed by a note length MIDI effect with a trigger note of off, we're going to get a delay based on the length of the first note length MIDI effect. So like if I make this length, whatever, shorter, we should hear it immediately, correct? So and I suppose what comes out this one, you know, it's just going to be short based on this. So I'm not really sure that the length of note length really matters, except for what, you know, note ends up hitting our instrument. What mostly matters, what causes the delay, is the length of the first note length MIDI effect in this pairing here. So cool. I'm glad we had this conversation. I just needed to really go over it so that I can remember how this works exactly and commit it to memory. I feel like it's really good to talk about concepts. It really helps lay out the idea. So if I turn this back on, we should get ourselves a nice loop. And if I turn this on, music for car ports will start looping again. I think the key here is also having these set to in. Yeah, so it makes a loop, not exactly what I played, and I think a lot of that has to do with how it's cutting off the previous notes and starting a new one as it's like replacing notes. But the loops that it's coming up with are really nice. I mean, they're very similar to what I play, the pattern that I play. So I guess what we could do is we could create a MIDI note or a MIDI clip with some notes in it. And so that's what I'm going to do here. Obviously, this is made to be just played live as like an instrument, more or less. So, but if we want to just have it kind of continuously playing, I can... And this one, this music for car ports, almost sounds like it needs a pitch down. It's got a very like classic Korg 90s kind of you know, multi-voice, multi-sample kind of the celeste setting on a lot of those old keyboards. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's very new agey, in my opinion. Yeah, let's see if this down 2 octaves helps. Maybe just 1 octave. Something you can also do, since we do have a feedback loop going, we can drop effects in here, and you will hear the pitches now changing up, +5, +5, +5 each time the notes come around the loop. Cool. I want to set this back to sync to the time. So if we turn this off, then, well, now, you know, everything is kind of looping in there. We can also add in a velocity. So now every time it goes around, we're going to get less and less volume. So essentially this creates like a cutoff. And as long as our instrument is set to accept velocity, it should eventually get quieter. Now, if I do a pitch of -5, although I'm not hearing it actually get quieter, so I'm not sure what's happening with that. Somehow maybe the velocity is getting... Yeah, it sounds pretty 80s to me, honestly. Yeah, where is what is happening with the velocity? I do not know. Like if I choose 0, obviously it cuts it off. A lot of it could be that we just have a continual set of notes coming through here. I think I need to set this to auto in order for the MIDI clip to become activated again. So many intricate little behaviors. We can try to put the velocity here, see if that does anything. We could also try the velocity in here. As long as it's somewhere along the way in the loop. Yeah, it looks like we've got low velocity coming out there, but we also have... I think the velocity is getting sort of stripped out by our note length. And you can also hear notes being cut off by the note length itself. Basically, notes are being stripped. And also, I didn't really set this operator all the way up, so some of that clicking could be coming from the operator itself, not having enough voices. Yeah, it's really using them all. You can see we're getting those CPU spikes. So yeah, we could have, this continual thing of notes playing through, and I think I do kind of like some of the little clicks, honestly. It's very textural. And very loopy. Yeah, and the music for Carport section sounds much better with an octave lower. So if we drop in a probability, max effect, anywhere in here. Well, obviously, just dropping this in there killed the sound, so let's send some more notes in there. We could also have the probability effect here as well. That almost makes more sense, although I think eventually it will just build up because... so maybe we'll have the probability much lower. As you can see, notes going in but not coming out, and they'll come out every now and then. Yep. And we could have a clip here. Let me just move all these note clips down. I'm going to leave these in here just for whoever random passerby, if they want to read that stuff and further try to peruse what's going on here. We could, although I think this might possibly, well, actually no. If you have it set to in, we can still play a clip and have it automate things, although any MIDI notes inside will not come out of the clip, essentially. So yeah, that's a fascinating sound there. So we could create a group Let's move our pitch there. This group, we could set the speaker to turn off every now and then, and that'll essentially strip out notes. Yeah, it's the only tricky spot about this this feedback, you know, and what makes the Max for Live Simple Echo superior now I'm finding is that, of course, when we hit stop, Ableton automatically flushes MIDI notes, which is what we want, really, I think. So, but that's okay. So we just have to remember, if we come up with a, it's, you know, impermanence is also really, really good to have in the process. I've been super frustrated, of course, by, you know, things just not working. Or losing things, I should say. All right, so let's add some. So we've got both probability happening here on this level, and probability happening inside of the. So it's going to be pretty generative, although, you know, using the same notes coming out of this clip, which I kind of like the sequence. Yeah, and this might be a little too weird. In fact, we might want to make it like a fifth or 7 or something like that. Usually a fifth. Let's try it. Usually a fifth sounds nice, and I think I need to make it not turn on so often. So we can manipulate the notes in the feedback loop inside here. So this is superior to the Simple Echo in that we can do all kinds of other weird things to the MIDI notes in here. Hence, like playing with this this pitching. And I probably need to make this go flip between -5 and 5. Otherwise, as you can hear, we're just going to get a bunch of notes stacking up higher. And they'll just keep going up and up and up. And we could have some -12s in there. But I think -5. Yeah, I've got some weird notes in there as I was dragging around that modulation. Cool. So one thing I thought of I wanted to explore is another rack that I had made. As I was messing around the other day with the arpeggiator, I found that there is this a huge array of options, but this random once I was really curious about for some reason. I started to do some tests with it to try and figure out what the heck that means and what it does. And essentially what it does is you can send in a series of notes and it makes a shuffle of the order of those for the arpeggiation. So it will send out the sequence like a random shuffle of the sequence, but it's the same. It kind of loops that shuffle until you send in a new set of notes, and then it makes a new random shuffle. So you could send in the same major chord in there, and it'll jumble the order of those 3 notes, and it'll be a different sequence every time you play that chord in there. And that seems all good and well, but I mean, what exactly like is the real, you know, benefit of that? And I came up with oh wow, things are really getting strange here with our anyway. I came up with the idea that so you could have a drum machine attached to that, and then if you played like 3 notes, like a, you know, 1 note attached to a kick and 1 attached to a hi-hat and 1 attached to a snare, you would get like a random pattern every time you sent notes into it, and the pattern would repeat itself all the same. And I think it's probably easier to just explain it experientially by showing and doing. So let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I do like what's happening with these notes. It sounds like we're getting a much more of a spread of lower notes, and I think because I put that let me fix it really quick. Pitch. Yeah, I had put this minus 12 in here. So we have it yeah, we have the device turning on here. But it's nice because it's essentially sort of created for us like it's got a little bit of a bass line in there and a really kind of pretty repetitive mid-range and I guess this music or carports is like sort of covering the high end. And this is all just with a series of basically just two notes, you know, in different sort of sequences. So anyway, a little off track there. I feel like this is more, instead of a sketch session, it's more just a sort of explaining concepts. And I guess that's just how some of these are going to be. And maybe that's a way for me to take a break from the usual, just let's start from zero, or let's try and, you know, come up with a certain kind of sound or music. I suppose working from some of these old Ableton projects, it's just inevitable because there's already so much going on that, you know, I need to sort of figure out what's happening, but also, so I'm actually learning from myself in the past in a way, which is, it's nice to be able to do that sometimes. Okay, so let's see, stuff for future sketches. Okay, and then racks. Let's see, one note beat generator. Random pattern generator. Okay, cool. So this is the fruits of about an hour and a half of experimenting and playing around with what looks to be, probably to you, to the outside looking in, some kind of crazy ramblings of a madman in some ways. And I could have, you know, tried to rebuild this in the sketch, but I think I'd rather just explain it and then start actually creating something with it right away. So it essentially takes a note in, it pushes that note as high up as it can possibly go. So even if you played in the lowest possible note, it's still going to push it all the way up. And then this minus 67 evens it out. It brings it back down to C3. C3 for me is like the very middle. It's like a good starting point to work with. And then so I've got this series of chains, and I have the chord in each one, and it's just plus 1, 2, 3, all the way up to plus 16. So what this essentially does is it spits out from here. It takes that C3 and it spits out C3 plus 15 other notes. So a total of 16 notes. Okay. Are you still with me? Yeah, most people have just left the chat. They're just like, this is too insane. So I using this random once. Those 16 notes essentially get fed into this, and then this random once creates out of the 16 notes a random shuffle of those, which then, since we have our hold set to on, it spins out those 16 notes in a pattern that repeats itself, but it's a randomly created pattern that then repeats itself over and over. And you can see here I've got these 16 steps, basically. These notes are filtered out from C3 to 16 notes up. So it can play C3, but only once during this 16-step pattern. And I'm not sure where it's going to play that. Every time I play one note into it, it just generates a whole new set of 16 because I'm splitting that one note up into 16, and it gets parsed into a pattern, and then this filters it out. So I mapped all of these to this knob here, and this is where it gets tricky. So I basically got this sort of descending minimum, and that means that so the higher up the speaker knob goes, the more open all of these speakers, the more on all of these speakers are going to be. And then I have another, this pushes, so since we have all these different notes, 16 happening, C3 up to C whatever, C sharp, D sharp 4. This pushes them all up as far as they can go and then pulls them back down to make these all into C3 again. So this is like, this combination here is a, it basically just squashes all notes back down to C3. And then I added this random chance here, which creates a probability, like as you've seen, as seen on TV. Yeah, so basically it it's our probability gate. And then I added another arpeggiator to create this flam effect. So, and then a velocity with some random on the end, so just some extra bells and whistles, and then this is the speed of the initial. So I am almost out of breath just explaining that. Gosh, but let us put it to, let's put our mouth to the metal. I don't even think that's a phrase, but I'm just winging it here. We're just keeping it loose, just spitballing, just coming up with a bunch of random BS. So let's see. Let's just find. We can really pick any note. It doesn't matter. But we'll say C3. If I can get it to Jesus, stop on that. There we go. C3. Okay, voila. So we want this to go before our instrument, whatever instrument we want. And I'm gonna just let's just go with a the analog, and we'll choose a noise. Or actually, no, we'll do this. We'll make this our kick, and I'm just gonna hit one note. This is all set up. I'm just gonna hit a random note on the keyboard, and then nothing happens. That's where the real test is. I need to hit a note that actually corresponds with this. So C3, because this is of itself as a filter. Let me just double check and make sure. So I can see here, I'm hitting C4. I need to drop my octave back down. Cool. Let's turn our chance all the way up. Let's drop this down. Let's get ourselves a kick going here. And we can further adjust the MIDI note coming out of this little pattern generator. Let's just do it down an octave. Cool. So now we have a bit of a kick here. Maybe we could add a bit of a high end of the kick. Although me and my great knowledge of the analog, it's of course not working the way I was hoping. So it looks like this filter is maybe everything's running through this filter. Okay, so we can get back to that some other time. There's a hearty kick. It's like too much almost. All right, so let's repeat this. Let's copy this and paste it to C#3. We'll call this snare. And actually, I want to move this over to D. Let's stay on the white keys for now. So I'm going to play... first I need to set up this, this snare. Now we're going to play D. Yeah, we really gotta temper that. Cool. So we're going to see C3 coming out of this thing. So the number of steps is basically as you can hear, we're getting the chants down, you know, that's and sounds like it's doing some kind of jumping as well. So let's make sure all of these are on. And it seems like I didn't do the math correctly. Like we need another one in here. Make sure all these speakers are on. Yep. So you know, it's still interesting in the pattern that it's making. So if I play any other note in there, and since now that I'm realizing, since we're using a drum rack, we do have to be specific in the notes that we play. It's not like an instrument rack where you kind of just play any notes into it. This one actually really does sort of filter things out using this receive. So the snare, because I have all the steps on, so you can kind of hear the repeating pattern as long as I pull the number of steps down, and as I have that knob linked to this section here, you can see it's muted on some of these speakers and then it's left some of these on. So as I pull that knob up, the number of steps, you'll see it's like it's turning on some of these speakers here. So if I have it down to 0, that's nothing goes through, and then 1 is like 1 step, 2 steps, but it's random every time based on this this random once when those steps are going to play. Since the random once is basically just like a random sequence of whatever notes are coming in. So if I hit if I play my D, E, and D, we're going to get a different pattern, which is nice because a lot of times you want to create a random pattern, but you want that random pattern to repeat. What I really wish we could do here is, you know, and we could record these notes out obviously into a clip, but somehow, you know, without Max for Live, it's just impossible. But with Max for Live, we could create some system that would record these notes, store them into, say, I think it's the earn object, perhaps would be the one that we would use. And then we could spit those back out, and using a series of earn objects, we could have the note patterns variate slightly, but be recorded. We'd be able to jump back to the original, you know, we could have like a series of ones. If we really like something, we could just hit a button and then save that as a sort of preset pattern. And I think that would be a really smart way of like creating patterns that kind of morph, but we'd always have like an original copy that we like to go back to, or we could have, you know, several original copies that we could refer to. But as you can see, I'm just hitting the A and the S key, which is actually C and D. And every time we get a different. And of course, if we use our chance here, we get even more randomness. Chance 0, or yeah, we don't get anything coming through. Chance of 100%, we don't get any kind of random probability gate. So it's nice because we have two sets of randomness happening, and the number of steps and the random once means that we get ourselves a kind of it's like a controlled randomness in a way. And that's, I think, what really separates, you know, average generative to above average or smart generative is like a way of having patterns that are meaningful and that repeat in a smart way. So if I make a clip here, essentially every time this note runs through, we're going to get a new pattern variation. So maybe I only want a new pattern variation created every eight measures. And we could have a Max for Live patch that takes an incoming note and then is mapped to these. So every time we get these new notes, these two notes playing, we're given like a sort of random set of, we could randomize this, which is also a fascinating idea. I would love to just be able to whip out Max for Live and build something like that, but unfortunately my skills are not good enough in Max for Live it would take me several hours and lots of debugging, and it would be kind of a mess. Nobody wants to see that. And I don't want to record myself going through that. It's almost pressure enough doing this. You know, I feel like I need to kind of, you know, part of the challenge for me is like trying to keep this thing, you know, flowing and moving somewhere meaningful and fun and interesting. Cool. So here's our sort of hi-hat sound, and I can, with the speed, we can obviously have a different rate for each pattern, which is really nice for getting those nice polyrhythmic patterns. That to me makes the most interesting sounding beats. So even though we're not getting a straight run of notes through, which I'll have to take a look, because obviously when our number of steps is all the way up, I kind of want it to just be like we should hear, you know, a very, very steady stream. But it seems that some of these are either not working, or, and it looks like our chance, I can see these dots here, we're getting a bit of a, which in and of itself is kind of interesting. I'm curious. I think all our speakers are on. Yeah, so it's almost like something in the maybe the random once pattern generation is not. It could also be something in here is not set up 100%, but we don't have any repeating notes. So again, as I mentioned before, an easy way to debug kind of what's happening in your MIDI racks is to just drop an empty rack in there, open it up, choose key, and you can see, you know, what's happening in there. If we put like a note length. I can see a bunch of notes happening here, and it looks like there's actually certain notes not happening. I can see a few missing in there. So if I mute this, we'll have a dry through, but I can see okay, and I'll hide this, then I'll put a note length MIDI effect wherever you are. Sometimes I'm staring right at it and it's like I don't even see it. Must be getting old. So yeah, we're missing C4. That's hilarious. That's why we're getting this like pattern that isn't a perfect perfect series. So maybe I didn't do one of these right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13. See, it's always like one little thing is off and it can 14, 15. So now we get the whole spread. Problem solved, I guess. We can mute our little debugger. And I had turned the arpeggiator off. We did not want that. So I don't think we need this because I remember adding this earlier. And let me just make sure that, yeah, it's not going any higher than this note. Cool. And technically we should still hear all the notes. There shouldn't be any breaks between them. So that's fascinating that it's that is happening. And let me try one more thing. It could be something so simple. If I turn these off. Yeah, honestly, you know, it's something I'll have to try to debug at another time. It's not bad how it is right now, honestly. And it, yeah. There it sounds very steady. There's no notes missing. Seems like only the 16th notes are or when it's set to 16 or huh, interesting. Yeah, almost like there's a little shuffle going on, but we have no groove set. Ah, perhaps it was the gate causing that, which, you know, honestly, it's good to know. Now I'm like maybe thinking maybe we want to have this controllable via some kind of knob. Okay, so that's really strange. The gate was set and then as I pulled it down, it sort of fixed itself. Now I want to see if we pull this in, do we get the same thing happening? I know maybe it was just kind of messed up somehow because I didn't have my notes. I have no idea, honestly. It's like we've kind of run across a a strange anomaly with some of the MIDI effects. I didn't think I'd actually found any bugs in those, but maybe that was a bug in the arpeggiator. A very harmless bug for sure. And it's kind of sounded nice, whatever it was doing. It almost was cool. So I need to copy this and remove this. There we go. And so let's pull down the number of steps. This essentially limits the amount of notes in the random pattern. Cool. And the hi-hat is definitely in desperate need of some random velocity. And yeah. So I gotta say, I do really like this concept here, this sort of this pattern, meaningful random pattern generator, which is what I'll name it. Meaningful random pattern generator. Cool. There you are for future reference and future use, which I do believe it's going to be really useful down the road. That is interesting. Let's see. So we set this to E3, and then it gets its own slot at that point. Okay, so it was sharing a slot with that. Okay, so if we wanted to set all these to C3, staring right at it, and set this to C3. So, okay, so multi, yeah, okay, so then all we need to do is just send in a C3. Kick, snare, hi-hat. Oh, I like how it labels it. Cool, so that makes it a lot easier instead of having to play an extra note in there. Awesome. Okay, so let's check out some of these audio effects. We've got some more Cthulhu effects, which is from a series of YouTube videos I did a long time ago. I think around 2016. And some of these are pretty wild. Awesome. Okay. I guess the hard part about this being a multi is you can't select, you have to open this to select anything in there. So the difference between this one is this is a random probability, so it'll just cut out notes at random whenever it feels. This one is basically like limiting the notes in the pattern. And since we're using a random chance on the arpeggiator, our pattern, again, will be the same every time it loops. Cool. So if we shut this thing down here, you're going to hear the same pattern. Well, since we have different speeds, there you go. So you can sort of hear the same random pattern, which, you know, we can alter a little bit as we add steps in here. And I think this same concept could also be utilized for actual notes. we'd have to use a scale function. And now, so I want to try to play with that. I want to add another track here. I mean, I guess we could just duplicate this and just. We need to get a note playing in here, and of course, that resets all our pattern shuffle order, note order, whatever. So let's give ourselves a tone here. It should just be playing C3 at this point. Manually send the note in there. Okay, so I hear stuff coming out of there. Let's turn that one off. Just playing very quietly, it sounds like. I guess we do have the level kind of down there. So let's open this thing up, and so this thing is, you know, filtering our different notes out, and we've got our C3 at the end here. All we need to do is create a random I'm thinking the notes that come through here are getting squashed there. So let's see now. They're probably, well, they should be C3, the notes coming through here. So that was our... Gotcha, so we just need to put a scale on the end of that. And set our scale to something meaningful. I hear some of these notes are meaningful. This one is not. I don't think we want this one either. Cool, and I think I want more of this note to happen than this one. Nice. And maybe we'll, let's see. I wonder, can we map any of these in here? It doesn't look like it. That's too bad. Cool, so... And if we still wanted some chance stuff to happen in there, we could, you know, drop a probability gate or, like the max for live effect. We could drop that in there. And I don't think we need this flam for this variation of our meaningful pattern generator. We don't need these notes pushed all the way up. So this was our probability just for one note, but now we have a bunch of notes happening. We could group this and we could create a series of scales in here. But for now, I think I'll leave it. I might, you know, on my own, in my own free time, sort of trick this out a little bit more later on. And I'm gonna bust out the old school probability gate, which is set up to work off of all notes, but we only need it to work. And I'm actually going to have it work before the scale, because the scale is pushing notes around, and we're getting C3 and up. I can't believe I spent the time to actually build this thing. I think it took me like an hour or two just to put the thing together. So as you can see here, our pattern is spitting out C3, and then it's a 16 set pattern. So whatever 16 notes above C3 is, I'm going to delete all those chains. We don't need all that extra stuff. Yeah, let's have a look over here. And it looks like the highest note we're going to spit out is D sharp 4, which is this one. Yep, and I just saw a note come through. And I'm going to just delete all the other chains here. So now we only have the ones we need. Cool. I wish I had fixed this so that, you know, it made more sense, where, you know, 100 should be allowing all the notes to pass through and 0 not, but it's, the logic is not set up properly in the actual, you know, this should be set to like one note higher than, you know, whatever. If it's set to one note higher, then, you know, we only get the, which is, you know, honestly, probably not that hard to do. We'll just go ahead and fix it. I feel like going back to the original and fixing that is like something I'm definitely gonna have to save for a rainy day, because that's 128 times I get to do this. But since this is only 16, that wasn't too painful. 0 through, 100% through, makes so much more sense semantically. This knob, you know, and the value makes so much more sense. So now I get to map that back to where I had the chance. And it looks like I've got it nested. So first we got to map. Where is it nested? That is a good question. Sometimes these racks get so nutty that it's hard to tell, you know, what's what and what needs to go where. Is it inside of here? Interesting. Does it need to be inside of there? That's a good question. This group here, is it really doing anything? I think it was like for the scale. So I'm gonna pull these out. I think we had a little too many groups going on here. Okay, cleaned it up a little bit. It's good to try to clean up one's messes in life. So chance or probably. Ah, I didn't map to the correct thing. That's why it wasn't cool. Probability. And instead of this flam, it would be cool to do some other fun things with like octaves, shifting. That's a whole other complicated. Ah, high pass, and that would explain the volume. Yeah, that makes so much more sense. With a good scale filter on there, it really does make a difference in. Cool. I want more of this note to happen, so. All right. So this is our atypical IDM type of. So if we take our probability to 100%, we should hear the same 16 note sequence each time. Each time it passes through the loop, or time it loops around, it should be the same. Yeah, so it does sound like it's the same sequence played, and I want to try to stretch this out a little bit, but then have this note play again, so when it loops back around. Cool, so we got a whole different pattern there, but that pattern should loop. There, that's a little more in time, I guess. Time with the beat. Cool. Every 8 measures, we'll have this note come back through and it'll switch up our pattern. So, to me, this is a pretty amazing little sequence. We could do a bass line also. And maybe we just have to drop the octave and take down the number of steps so we only get so many steps happening. It's such a wow! It's such a an interesting feature. Who would have thought? You know, that random once. I am going to just delete this and turn this off and let these notes play through and see if things sound a little bit more coherent. And since we have the same scale on the bass line as well, it's matching up with our melody. Now let's see if we get a change in pattern when this one. Some patterns are better than others, I'm noticing. Very good. Like, very good. Good robot. I just want to, like... Let's throw in some probability in there. Just a little bit. Working on the wrong thing. I wanted to cool. I feel like all these things are kind of matching together. I mean, these aren't the best drum sounds that we've worked with. But this in and of itself kind of almost sounds like a very old drum machine, old like 80s sounding, almost hauntological, like And here is where we would, you know, put a if you wanted to record some of the notes from the pattern generation, you could pull MIDI from, let's see, where's our, meaningful pattern generator. And let's see what we get under here. We get, just an ungodly amount. A lot of this are these, I think, we've got a lot of crazy chains. So if you could find the right spot to pull from, and you could see here at least they show you where notes are coming in and out. Like let's say the kick, post effects. Let's find the melody actually. Hi-hat melody, yep. And let's just try post effects and see what we get. Yeah, and it looks like we can, it's interesting that there's like a bit of almost looks like a delay happening, a latency. Probably not hard to fix, but so there we can get some stuff slightly more set in stone. But yeah, look at that latency. Wow, okay. I didn't realize that Ableton, you know, really had a problem with MIDI latency like that. But they're all at the exact same kind of latency, so not hard to just drag all the notes back onto the grid. But yeah, that's weird. Okay, good to know. I mean, like, I don't think we're doing anything super weird in here to make that kind of latency. Or is the melody set? Yeah, it's set to 1/16 and everything. So I'm not really sure where that sort of odd latency came from. And let's see, with our filter, I think attack velocity. Oh yeah, envelope velocity. Is that in here, maybe? Who knows? This thing is a beast, and honestly, I'm not super adept with analog. I need to spend a lot more time offline just doing experiments and trying to get super familiar with all the ways that the routing works. Cool. It's really gritty sounding, but I think if we draw in there like this, we'll get much smoother. Which is not bad. Yeah, this is definitely sounding like a piece of music that we would I don't know, put on like the intro to some VHS tape about learning math, with some sweet graphics from like Pavre or 3D Studio Max version 1, just like a zooming in of like a sweet sphere or something with a 3D text, With this 12-step course, you will learn to become an expert at maths. All right, cool. I do feel like just for the sake of having like a, you know, for the sake of being thorough, this hi-hat, you know, needs some love. Yeah, there we go. That's that makes so much more sense with the kind of like cheesy Muzak vibe we have going on with this thing. Attack velocity. Yeah, how about that? Velocity, random velocity is going to give us a little bit of a random attack there. I do like that option. Envelope and velocity. Not sure what that does exactly, but I like it. I like the variation we're getting here, and I want to definitely have as much of that going on as possible. Definitely need some of that on the frequency. Frequency mod, yeah, key envelope. And on our melody, we could throw, you know, we could just throw the occasional octave up. See, not everything we do has to sound like a total weird, you know, abyss creature from the abyss. All right, so now I got to save this. We've got all these bass lines and things in there. Melodies, kick, snare, hi-hat, and I gotta get this saved. I'm starting to try to make a good habit of if we create something nice, let's put it in our racks folder, because otherwise, you know, it's gonna get lost in this shuffle of sketches. Yeah, this also kind of reminds me of some early or late 90s or early 2000s kind of almost Warp Records, you know, plaid-esque. Although they, you know, we need to change some keys on our bass and melody, which would not be that hard to do. We could have a okay, I'm getting all over the place. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm probably going way over in time. Yeah, hour 22, but hey, it's not a good sketch unless we spend at least an hour and a half covering some ground. So, where were I? Instruments, yep. Yes, 12-step maths, VHS course. Intro music generator. There we go. I like it. It's very dumb, but I kind of like it. All right. Of course, I'm realizing that, you know, we've got all these other things at work here. You know, so if I change the key for one section, you know, everything else is going to have to change as well. I mean, the only thing I could think to do, you know, besides have a bunch of these pitches and we would just, you know, link them all up to a MIDI knob. we could, you know, we could have a series of these pictures. Let's say this one is, and we could keyboard map them. This is all mapped to 1 here. So if I hit the 1 key, and we could have a bunch of these with different numbers, just like using the number keypad on the keyboard. Yeah, that's wow, it's so cheesy. I almost want to try and like throw some weird effects in there and warp it up a little bit. Do some irreverent kind of thing. All right, let's go there. Let's shut this off. Let's go ahead and quit you in the background. There we go. Bye bye. And so we gotta. Oh, hey, now, not now. It's just trying to take over there. So let's try some different effects in here. I was listening to this some sound in my head, and that was the old tape. Yeah, we gotta make everything mono. That we, you know, if we drop this old tape effect, and or the warp and flubber also. There we go. That tape is just totally messing up. We definitely need. In fact, I think I'm just going to group this. We'll call this our math is fun. All right. We'll route that to here. Gotta get rid of all of those. I'm just, you know, I'm not feeling all those little squares. They drive me nuts. I can't explain it. Maths effects. Yes, this meaningful pattern generation thing. It's like my new jam, and I love some probability gate patterns. You know, just more random. But at least this new thing that we've built here. It's got a bit of both. It's got best of both worlds. It's got some, and I'm hearing this, you know, kind of like playing over and over again, and these are almost not getting old because there's like a different what we've got to set up every 8 measures. It switches up the pattern, so that's very easy on the ears. All right, sends only to you. Let's, cool. And we don't need this one because that's a bit redundant. Let's get in some old crackles, you know. We have this sample here. Which I know at the end has some nice, like, ugly sounding. And a grain delay on that might sound neat with a little random pitch there. Kind of changes it up a little bit. Let's hear what another one will do, but maybe we'll make this a little more straightforward. And I think I want to kill that sort of, there's like a wind sound coming off of it. I guess it's... right in there somewhere. Cool. And then there was crackler effect somewhere around here. I believe we had a whole bunch of cracklers. Yeah, there's all these. Let's try this alt 2. I think this may be too slurpy for our purposes. Now let's go to our just our good old-fashioned crackle maker. Awesome, and we can hit play on that, and we can control our chew. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, you know, we did all this work for this sound here, but we've also got this echo effect that has a nice noise section I remember from another. Yeah, something we got in there is definitely pushing the we get some spikes here. I think it's also our OBS recording all this at the same time. Let's turn that up just a little bit. And what about wobble, huh? Maybe we don't even need our old tape effect, but then this one doesn't have a chew. Gotta have that old... Oh yeah, tape is all messed up. Which really only sounds good on the very end. Because a chew effect really is like something that, you know, affects the whole thing really, for the most part. Yeah, and usually chew is just like really aggressive. Like, you know, you got the tape and you're just like tapping on it while it's playing, or shaking the tape recorder. Yeah, this noise. It's probably a sample somewhere. I'm guessing it's not procedurally generated. Maybe we do have a ducking. That's convenient. Oh yeah, that's sounding a lot more like some old... There we go. A lot more like an old VHS. So, yeah, we need to get some of that chew in there. Really bring it home. And I'm just dragging my mouse like really aggressively. cool. And I feel like this tape chew could also use a oh, did that not record anything? I know it. Surely it did. All right, yep. Let's clean that up a little bit. Don't need all those dots. There we go. I kind of want to pull the balance out a little bit with the chew. I think if we map this to here, yeah. That's usually a tape chew. The stereo is all messed up as well. So we're going for realism points. So let's see. It's set to almost 10R. Yeah, it's a little off. Usually, most tapes are kind of off anyway. And if we could do this right somehow, you know, it would be sort of randomly shifting from right to left. And there's probably a way to use this, I don't know, there's probably a way to, there's got to be a way to like have it randomly affect the left or right, maybe with an auto pan that's, you know, set to, yeah, that's a little chewy. So we can flip that. I wish we could have curves here. It's all linear, but it would be great to be able to get some. Yeah, okay. So that's better. And then maybe we need a bit of a random grit on this. Cool. All right, so yeah, almost an hour and 40 minutes. I think this is our longest one. Probably spent a little bit too much time debugging stuff and explaining some of the crap inside of here. But that's okay, you know, sometimes, you know, you're just gonna spend more time having fun, and not thinking about time, and that's just the way it goes. Yeah, I like this lo-fi sound here. It's yeah, that almost sounds like a messed up tape as well. Oh wow, yeah, okay. So maybe let's see, 2233. 2233. I'm gonna copy all of this so that it's sort of, and I could probably get in there. Actually, you know, just do the right thing here and get in there and find wherever that mono is happening. And I think it's right at the end here. Yeah, and remap this to here, and we find it in this crazy mess. Yeah, and so it'll go to, looks like 0 is the middle, 2, yeah, 0, and then it's gonna kind of like, yeah, it's and I think I want to make the max on this instead of 0. I want to make it a little more mono. Cool. We could automate this on its own crazy track. And I don't think we need any of the phaser. Someone needs to clean that tape head. It's just atrocious. Cool, let's turn down the crackle density just a little bit. Could tweak this thing till the cows come home, honestly. And this hi-hat, yeah, it's almost too clean, you know, with where is it? Tube, just dynamic tube. Yeah, you've got to just give it some kind of nasty. Ah, did I put this in the right spot? Hi-hat, yeah. Let's see if we can really push the high end. Cool, much more almost tape sounding distortion on the high end there. Not perfect, but you know, it'll just have to do. All right. Yeah, we probably could boost up the volume just a bit. It is a little quiet. Cool. Okay, so yeah, now at last I'm gonna call it, and yeah. So don't forget to play around with this this meaningful pattern generation stuff. This little chunk right here, that is a sweet piece of future use right there. Yeah, and the melodic also. I mean, we'll definitely be messing around with that a lot more down the road. So. Don't forget, math is easy and math is fun, and you too can learn to be an expert. This 12-step VHS program brought to you by MathCore, is ready to take you on a journey of learning. So until next time,